Many people asked us to make a hand spinner on Manual do Mundo. Hand means hand, and spinner means spin. It's a thing that spins in our hand. It's this right here. You can notice that it has a kind of hypnotic effect on us. You can keep looking at this thing for hours. So, let's learn how to make this using a skateboard bearing and a PVC pipe. The secret of the hand spinner is these little bearings here. This is a skateboard bearing. We bought them online for 8 Brazilian reals, 8 bearings, so it ends up being 1 Brazilian real each. This one is the cheapest, the worst quality there is. To make that plastic part that goes around the bearings, I'm going to use a PVC pipe, one of those for hot water. Its size is 3/4 or 26 millimeters. You can use the brown pipe too, which is easier to find, but the wall of the brown pipe is a little thinner, so it might end up being a little weaker than this one here. To glue it, I'm going to use super glue. And to speed things up and give it a bond, give it some consistency, I'm going to use baking soda along with the glue. The first thing is to cut a piece of PVC the same width as the bearing. You're going to need 4 pieces just like this one. The problem is that it's hard to cut this the right way. It's always going to end up a little crooked. So, the best thing to do is to cut a bunch of pieces, and when you get one right, you set aside the ones that were cut correctly. Then, it's good to sand or scrape the little piece so it doesn't have these burrs, these little bits of plastic here. One annoying thing you have to do now is put the bearing inside the PVC pipe. The problem is, this hole is smaller than the bearing, so we'll need to soften the PVC. Obviously, here you need to be careful not to touch the melted plastic, right? This isn't very dangerous, because PVC's low heat capacity means it doesn't retain much heat. When you touch it, it cools down right away. Here we have the bearings coated with PVC. Now, take a close look. One bearing will stay in the center, and I'll have one on each side here. I'll need to sand the joint between these pieces so the glue can bond them. Otherwise, there won't be enough contact area. One way to organize this geometrically is to draw a circle, and then, without changing the size of the compass, you place its point on the line and make a small mark. Then, you place the point on that mark and keep making marks, and so on. You'll end up marking 6 points on the circumference, and then you just take 3 of those points and mark them on the PVC. So now I know that I have to make this part where the little dots are marked kind of straight. I'll clamp the bearing in the vise and wrap sandpaper around a small piece of wood. Dude, check this out. This piece of wood, it's a donkey's head I carved back in December '92. Probably before a lot of people were even born. Sand it down until you're close to the bearing. Since this part is nearly a triangle, I need to sand the other bearing sides to fit. The tricky part now is gluing these small pieces. We tested and found that using super glue with baking soda sprinkled on top works well and is cheaper. Besides adding volume, the baking soda will make the glue harden immediately. To reinforce it, you can keep putting glue around the little gaps and sprinkling baking soda on top until it turns into a kind of weld. I don't know why baking soda reacts with super glue. Maybe I should make a video about it later? I'm going to sand it a bit here to remove these burn marks and the little burrs that are left. And finally, this thing here barely spins. Because if you pay close attention, there's a little red thing here. This is a kind of shielding, a protection that already comes from the factory. And this kind of makes it a bit stuck. It makes the bearing kind of stuck. So I'm going to give it a good cleaning to remove any dust that might interfere with the bearing. Using a screwdriver, I'll carefully remove this shielding, avoiding damage to the fragile bearing. But this still isn't spinning properly. Inside the bearing, there's a kind of thick grease that doesn't let the balls spin freely. So, we need some kind of solvent here. I'm going to use kerosene because I think it's one of the least harmful. Some use gasoline, thinner, or other options. This is the mildest, so let's dip the part in kerosene. With a brush, I'm going to remove all this nasty grease. Man, imagine if I find out that kerosene dissolves the glue I used. I haven't tested this thing yet, but just by holding it, it already feels like it worked really well. So, let's make a bet. I'm going to get the stopwatch on my phone here, and if this thing spins for more than 30 seconds, does it deserve a big thumbs up? 43 seconds. I think that's worth a thumbs up down there, right? You'll soon realize that this thing here is highly addictive. But what is it about these hand-spinning toys, like the yo-yo or the spinning top, that makes us so fascinated by them? I guess it's a really cool physical effect that gives stability to these objects. It's the gyroscopic effect. When something is spinning, it tends to gain an unusual stability. It becomes much more stable. If we spin this a lot and balance it on our finger, it keeps spinning without falling. You'll notice some resistance if you try to move the axis. And this even makes a difference on our planet Earth, just so you know. So, when you're spinning this thing like a 1.5-year-old baby and someone comes over and says you have nothing better to do, that you're just a fool spinning this thing, you tell them you're just observing the gyroscopic effect.